I'm Elena, and I'm a busy consultant based in Boston. Maybe you know the type. Long hours, lots of travel, always glued to my laptop, navigating spreadsheets and corporate politics. My life looks, on the surface, pretty successful. I make good money, I'm good at what I do, I solve problems for a living. But the biggest, most complicated problem I ever faced wasn't in a boardroom, it was in my own family. You see, while I was out there in the world, building something for myself, working 60, 70 hours a week, hitting deadlines, making tough calls, my family was doing something else entirely. They were spending the money I was earning. Not their money, mind you, mine. For years, I was the quiet, dependable daughter, the capable one who could always be counted on, the one who didn't need much because she was strong. That strength, as it turned out, was seen less as a trait to be admired and more as a resource to be exploited, especially by my brother, Daniel. Daniel was different. He was the charming one, the one with big dreams that never quite panned out, the one who always seemed to need a little help. And my parents? They showered him with it, their attention, their affection, and when that wasn't enough, they came to me, the successful daughter, the bank of last resort. I paid for cars, for rent, for failed business ventures, for medical bills, for vacations, for just life. I wrote checks, transferred money, maxed out credit cards, all with a smile and the quiet hope that this would finally be enough. Enough to earn their approval, enough to feel like a real part of the family, not just the walking wallet. The event that finally broke me, though, wasn't one big ask. It was something I couldn't even be there for. My family planned a big trip, a cruise, actually, something they'd always talked about but couldn't afford. My mother called, her voice laced with the usual mix of hope and veiled expectation. "Oh, Elena," she'd sighed. "Daniel and I were just talking. This cruise would be such a dream, but with his business still finding its feet, it's just impossible." They didn't even have to ask directly anymore. I just knew. And like always, I said yes. I crunched the numbers, sacrificed my own planned trip, worked extra hours to cover the unexpected expense. I paid for the cabins, the excursions, the fancy dinners, the whole thing. I couldn't take the time off work to go with them, but I felt a quiet satisfaction, thinking I was helping make a dream come true for the people I loved. Then came the social media posts. The endless stream of smiling faces, beautiful sunsets, delicious food. Photos of Daniel laughing with my parents on the deck, photos of them exploring exotic ports. And the captions. "So grateful for this amazing family time. Making memories on our dream cruise. Daniel planned the best excursions." Not one single mention of me. Not one photo where they held up their phone and said, "Wish Elena was here, she made this all possible." It was like I didn't exist. Like the cruise had magically funded itself. Like it was all Daniel and my parents. Seeing them celebrate his role, their happiness funded by my sacrifice, while I was stuck in a hotel room in some anonymous city, eating room service and staring at spreadsheets, was the final, brutal straw. It shattered something fundamental inside me. The pain was so sharp, so profound, it stole my breath. Maybe you felt it, that specific, gut-wrenching ache of realizing the people you thought loved you unconditionally actually saw you as a means to an end. The slow, dawning horror of understanding that their affection was transactional, and you'd been paying the price, over and over, for a seat at a table that wasn't even set for you. If you've ever been the quiet one, the capable one, the one who always says yes, even when it hurts, because you just desperately want to be seen, to be loved, to belong, then maybe you know a little of how that felt. And maybe, just maybe, my story might resonate with you. Let me know where you're watching or listening from in the comments below. I stood frozen in my hotel room, the glowing rectangle of my phone, a cruel window into a happiness I had funded but wasn't a part of. The images swam before my eyes. Daniel, tanned and smiling, leaning against the ship's railing with my mother, her arm looped through his. Another showed my father, usually stoic, looking genuinely delighted as Daniel pointed out something in the distance. Their captions spoke of bonding, of cherished moments, of a much-needed family getaway. The words felt like a physical blow. My money had paid for those smiles, those memories, that getaway. My sacrifice of time, energy, and my own savings had made it possible. And in their narrative, I was entirely absent, erased. The capable daughter who funded the fun but didn't get to participate, not even in the story they told about it. Tears came then, hot and stinging, blurring the screen. It wasn't just about the money, though that was a huge, glaring part of it. It was about the invisibility, the profound, crushing weight of being seen only for what I could provide, never for who I was or what I needed. This wasn't the first time, not by a long shot. The history of Daniel's golden child status and my role as the ever-giving sister stretched back decades, a pattern so ingrained I barely saw it as unusual for most of my life. Daniel was born 2 years after me. From the moment he arrived, the world tilted on its axis. He was the first boy, the one with the easy charm, the one who navigated school with a shrug and a grin while I buried myself in books and worried about perfect grades. If Daniel got into trouble, a scraped knee, a failed test, a minor infraction, it was always framed as an understandable boyish mishap, something to be gently corrected or even laughed off. If I stumbled, it was a serious disappointment, a failure of the potential everyone insisted I had. Daniel's needs were immediate and paramount. Mine were secondary, easily deferred because I was so responsible, so mature. Elena, can you get Daniel's backpack? He's running late. Became the soundtrack to my childhood. Elena, share your toys. Daniel wants to play. Elena, be understanding. Daniel's having a tough time. My needs, my feelings, my time were always negotiable, always less important than Daniel's comfort or happiness. My mother was the primary architect of this dynamic. She adored Daniel with an intensity that felt, even as a child, suffocatingly exclusionary. Her eyes lit up when he entered the room. His smallest achievements were heralded as major victories. His failures were softened, excused, blamed on external factors. She worried over him constantly, fluttering around him, anticipating his every desire. With me, it was different. My successes were acknowledged, yes, but often with a caveat. Good, Elena, I knew you could do it, said with less pride and more expectation. My struggles were met with impatience. Just try harder, Elena. Or, stop being so sensitive. My father was quieter, less overtly involved in the day-to-day emotional drama, but his silence was its own form of complicity. He rarely challenged my mother's favoritism. He seemed content to let the dynamic exist, perhaps finding it easier than navigating my mother's intense focus on Daniel or my own quiet competency. His approval felt distant, conditional, tied to my achievements rather than my inherent worth. As I got older, the dynamic shifted from emotional to practical, and eventually, financial. I worked hard in high school, got scholarships, went to a good university. Daniel drifted through college, changing majors multiple times, never quite settling on anything. There were phone calls home where I overheard my mother fretting about his grades, his social life, his lack of direction. Don't worry, Mom. I'd heard him say once, breezy and confident, something will work out. And something usually meant someone else, usually me. It started subtly. While I was pulling all-nighters, working part-time jobs to supplement my scholarships and cover my expenses, my parents were still funding Daniel. Then came the phone calls. Elena, Daniel needs a new laptop for school, his broke. Could you maybe help out? He's really stressed about it. Or, Daniel got a job offer, but he needs to relocate, and he's short on the security deposit. He's so worried he'll lose the opportunity. Each request was wrapped in a narrative of Daniel's need and potential, and my perceived abundance and ability to help. You're doing so well, Elena, my mother would say. Daniel's not quite as stable yet. He needs a little boost. It felt less like asking for a favor and more like presenting an obligation. I was the safety net, the fallback plan, the inexhaustible resource. I always said yes. Why? A tangled mess of reasons. There was genuine love for Daniel, despite the uneven playing field. I wanted him to succeed. There was the deeply ingrained habit of being the good daughter, the one who helped, the one who didn't cause problems. There was the desperate, aching need for my parents' approval, the hope that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, they would finally see me, truly see me, and acknowledge my worth. I confused being useful with being loved. I told myself it was temporary, just a little help to get him started, but it never stopped. College bled into post-graduation struggles, which bled into various failed entrepreneurial attempts, which bled into general inability to manage his finances. Meanwhile, my career took off. I worked relentlessly, sacrificing weekends, holidays, relationships. My income grew, and so did the requests. A down payment on Daniel's first apartment, funding for his brilliant app idea that never got past the planning stage, covering his rent when the app failed, paying off his credit card debt because the interest rates are killing him. Elena, you wouldn't want your brother to suffer, would you? Each request came with a story, a justification, a subtle or not so subtle layer of guilt if I hesitated. Family helps family, Elena. My mother would remind me, her voice soft but firm. You have more than enough. It's the right thing to do. Did they know the extent of my sacrifice? Did they know I was delaying buying a car, pushing back my own goal of saving for a down payment on a condo, living a far more frugal life than my salary suggested? I dressed conservatively, ate out rarely, took staycations instead of actual vacations. I funneled thousands upon thousands of dollars into Daniel's life while my own financial goals stalled. I believe deep down they didn't want to know. It was easier to see me as a bottomless well. The worst part was the lack of acknowledgement. It wasn't just the absence of thanks, it was the way they talked about Daniel's progress, as if it were entirely his own doing, or theirs. Daniel's finally getting back on his feet, they'd say, beaming, after I'd just sent a significant amount to clear his debts. There was never a thanks to Elena's help. My contribution was the invisible foundation, the uncredited labor that made their preferred narrative possible. I started to resent Daniel, not for needing help, but for the effortless way he seemed to accept it, even expect it, and for the way he basked in the glow of my parents' approval without acknowledging the hidden cost. I resented my parents for creating and perpetuating this dynamic, for valuing one child's comfort over the other's well-being, for teaching Daniel that he was entitled to my resources. My attempts to talk about it were met with immediate dismissal or anger. "You're being dramatic, Elena," my mother would say, waving a hand. "It's just money. Family is more important." "But it's my money, Mom." I'd tried once, my voice trembling. "Money I worked really hard for." "And what's more important than helping your brother?" she'd countered, her eyes hardening. "He's family. We do this for each other. Don't tell me you've become too good for us now that you're a fancy consultant." That last line always stung the most. It was a classic manipulation tactic. Frame my reasonable boundaries or needs as a sign that I had changed, that I was abandoning them, that my success had made me arrogant and uncaring. It worked. I'd back down, apologize, and the cycle would continue. I felt increasingly isolated. My friends heard snippets, but it was hard to explain the depth of the enmeshment, the long history of subtle and overt emotional blackmail. "Just say no." They'd advise, and I'd nod, knowing they were right, but feeling utterly incapable of doing it. The fear of losing my family, of being truly cast out, felt more terrifying than the slow erosion of my finances and my sense of self. The cruise. That was the tipping point. Seeing those photos, that blatant display of enjoyment funded by me, and the utter lack of acknowledgement, something inside me snapped. The carefully constructed facade of happy family I'd clung to for so long crumbled. The pain was too much to contain, too sharp to ignore. I paced the hotel room, the images on my phone now seared into my mind. The tropical sun on their faces, the effortless joy. It wasn't just that they hadn't thanked me. It was that they hadn't even seemed to think of me. My contribution was invisible, my absence irrelevant. I was the mechanism, not the person. I thought of all the things I had sacrificed, the modest apartment I could have bought years ago, the comfortable savings account I should have had by now, the sense of security that came from financial independence. I had poured all of that into a bottomless pit of need and entitlement, disguised as family loyalty. And for what? So they could take a luxury cruise and pretend it was all thanks to Daniel. The unfairness of it was a bitter, metallic taste in my mouth. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I wanted to scream, to rage, to throw the phone against the wall. But years of swallowing my feelings, of being the calm, responsible one, held me back. Instead, I just hurt, an ocean of hurt, threatening to drown me. Then, a different feeling started to surface, slow and unfamiliar. Anger. Cold, hard anger. Anger at Daniel for his perpetual state of need and his lack of gratitude. Anger at my parents for their blatant favoritism and their manipulation. Anger at myself for allowing this to go on for so long, for prioritizing their comfort over my own well-being, for believing that their love was conditional on my usefulness. In that moment of absolute desolation and burgeoning anger, a clarity washed over me. This wasn't love, not real, healthy love. This was a transaction. I was an ATM with emotions they occasionally pretended to care about, as long as the withdrawals continued. And I couldn't do it anymore. I simply couldn't. The decision felt monumental, terrifying. It meant disrupting the fundamental structure of my family, the one I had always tried so desperately to fit into. It meant facing their inevitable backlash, their accusations, their guilt trips, perhaps even losing them entirely. But the alternative, continuing to live this lie, to hemorrhage my resources and my soul for people who didn't see me, was a slow, agonizing death of my spirit. My fingers hovered over the phone screen, not to scroll through their vacation photos anymore, to call. My mother answered on the second ring, her voice bright, still filled with post-cruise euphoria. Elena. Hi, honey. We were just looking at the pictures. Oh, it was just wonderful. The casualness of it, the utter lack of awareness, only solidified my resolve. Mom, I said, my voice flat, devoid of my usual cheerful deference. Yes, sweetie. Is everything all right? You sound a little tired. I saw the photos, I continued, ignoring her question. The cruise looked amazing. Oh, it was. You should have been there. Daniel had such a good time, and your father, too. We really needed it. I paid for it, Mom. The words hung in the air, sharp and unexpected. Silence. A long, uncomfortable silence stretched across the thousands of miles between us. Well, yes, she finally said, her tone shifting, becoming guarded. We appreciated that, Elena. We said thank you. No, Mom, I said, my voice gaining strength. You didn't. Not really. And it's not just the cruise, it's everything. It's been years of paying for Daniel's life, for things you could have afforded if you hadn't always bailed him out. It's paying for your choices, for your favoritism. Her voice immediately went cold. Favoritism? How can you say that? We love you both equally. Do you? I challenged, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Do you really? When was the last time you asked me if I needed anything? When was the last time you prioritized my needs over Daniel's? When have you ever acknowledged how much I've given, how much I've sacrificed? You don't even see it, do you? You just see me as the reliable one, the one who can afford it, the one you can take from without consequence. That is not fair, Elena. We are your family, she exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch, defensive and indignant. We've always been there for you. Have you? I asked again, the rhetorical question hanging heavy. Or have I always been there for you? Paying the bills, smoothing things over, being the responsible one so Daniel didn't have to be? How much of my savings have gone to prop him up? How much of my life have I put on hold? This is monstrous, she cried. After everything we've done for you, we raised you, we gave you everything. You gave me life, I acknowledged, and I'm grateful for that. But you also taught me that my worth was tied to my ability to give, to solve problems, to be useful. You taught me that Daniel's needs always came before mine, and you enabled him to never take full responsibility for himself. He's your brother. Yes, he is, and I love him. But that doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep him warm, or to keep you comfortable. The conversation escalated, as I knew it would. My mother deployed every weapon in her arsenal. Guilt. We're so disappointed in you, Elena. Denial. We don't know what you're talking about. Gaslighting. You're remembering things wrong. You're being ungrateful. And ultimately, threats. If this is how you feel, maybe we need some space. Maybe we do, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. The pain of her rejection was sharp, but beneath it was a new, unfamiliar sense of liberation. I had spoken my truth. I had finally said the forbidden things out loud. Fine then, she snapped, her voice venomous. Don't call us. Don't expect us to call you. Okay, Mom, I replied, my heart pounding. I won't. I hung up the phone, the silence in the room deafening. I stood there for a long time, breathing deeply, letting the shock and the aftermath wash over me. It was done. The confrontation I had dreaded for years was over, and it was every bit as painful as I had imagined, and also, strangely exhilarating. Over the next few weeks, there were no calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive emails. My family went radio silent. It hurt, a deep, familiar ache of rejection. But with the pain came a profound sense of relief. The constant pressure was gone. The expectation, the obligation, the simmering resentment, it all lifted. I talked to Daniel once. He called, sounding annoyed rather than concerned. Mom says you're freaking out about the cruise? What's your deal, Elena? It was just a trip. It wasn't just a trip, Daniel, I said calmly. It was the last straw. It was one more example of how you and Mom and Dad expect me to fund your lives without any thought for mine, without any gratitude or acknowledgement. He scoffed. Oh, come on, we're family. We help each other out. You make way more than I do. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal to me, I insisted. I've put my own life on hold for years, Daniel. I've sacrificed my financial security, my peace of mind, for what? So you can keep living without consequences? So Mom and Dad can keep pretending everything's fine while I foot the bill? You're being selfish, he accused, his voice hardening, trying to hold money over our heads. That's messed up, Elena. No, I said, cutting him off. What's messed up is expecting one person to carry everyone else indefinitely. What's messed up is taking and taking and taking without ever stopping to think about the cost to the person giving. This stops now, Daniel. I won't be your ATM anymore. I won't be your parents' retirement plan or your endless bailout fund. You need to figure things out for yourself. Fine, he spat, just as my mother had. Don't expect anything from us either. I don't, I said quietly. I haven't for a long time. The line went dead. That was the last direct conversation I had with my brother for a very long time. The initial period after cutting ties was lonely and difficult. The silence was jarring after years of constant, albeit often stressful, communication. There were moments of doubt, of guilt. Had I overreacted? Was I truly selfish? Had I thrown away my family? But then I would remember the feeling in that hotel room, the weight of years of being unseen and exploited. I would remember the sting of those cruise photos, the casual dismissal of my contribution. And the clarity would return. I started focusing on myself. Really focusing. For the first time, my money was mine. I started saving aggressively, building the financial cushion I had always dreamed of. I bought a car. I started looking seriously at condos. I invested in my own future instead of theirs. I also started therapy. It was crucial in processing the years of emotional neglect and manipulation. My therapist helped me understand the family dynamics, the role I had played as the rescuer and the invisible backbone, and the deep-seated need for validation that had kept me trapped. I learned about boundaries, about healthy relationships, about the difference between love and obligation. It was a slow, often painful process, but also incredibly healing. I grieved the loss of the family I had wished for, the one where I was seen and loved unconditionally, not just for what I could do. I mourned the years lost to trying to earn something that was never going to be freely given. As I healed, my perspective shifted. The anger softened into a quiet understanding of their limitations, their own issues, but the understanding didn't dilute my resolve. I saw their behavior for what it was. Not personal malice, perhaps, but a deeply dysfunctional system that had cast me in a specific, sacrificial role, and I refused to play that role any longer. I reconnected with friends, explaining more fully what I had been going through. Their support was invaluable. They saw my strength, my resilience, my worth, without any conditions attached. I started building a chosen family, people who celebrated my successes and supported me through challenges, and for whom I did the same, freely and without resentment. My career continued to thrive, but now, my success felt like mine, not just a means to an end for others, but a result of my hard work and a source of personal pride. I started taking vacations, enjoying the fruits of my labor. The first time I walked into the condo I bought, using my down payment, my savings, the feeling of accomplishment and independence was overwhelming. It wasn't just property, it was a monument to my reclaimed self-worth. There were attempts at contact from my family over time, usually tentative, testing the waters. My mother would send a brief text on a holiday, or Daniel would accidentally like something on social media. I responded politely, distantly, maintaining the boundaries I had fought so hard to establish. I was no longer available for financial requests, for emotional buffering, or for playing my old role. The distance allowed me to see the dynamic with startling clarity. I wasn't the problem. The system was. My selfishness was actually self-preservation. My ungratefulness was a refusal to participate in my own exploitation. The pain of betrayal never completely disappears, but it transforms. It becomes a scar, a reminder of where you've been, but not a wound that constantly reopens. I learned that walking away from toxicity, even when it's wrapped in the guise of family, isn't a failure. It's an act of profound self-love. I don't speak to my immediate family often, and our interactions are brief and superficial when they happen. There is no longer the expectation, the pressure, the guilt. There is just space. And in that space, I have finally found room to breathe, to grow, to be fully and unapologetically myself. The woman I was always meant to be, before the weight of expectation and the burden of invisible labor crushed me. The girl who desperately wanted to be seen and loved by her family is still a part of my story, but she no longer defines me. She is the root from which a stronger, more independent, more capable woman has grown. A woman who knows her worth is intrinsic, not conditional. A woman who protects her energy, her resources, and her peace. A woman who finally knows what it feels like to be truly free. So, that's my story. It's a story of betrayal, yes, and of pain. But it's also a story of reclaiming myself piece by piece after feeling lost for so long. It's a story of learning that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones you need to protect yourself from. If you're in a situation where you feel unseen, unheard, or constantly taken advantage of by the people closest to you, please know you are not alone. Your feelings are valid. You are not selfish for wanting to protect yourself and build a life that is yours. Setting boundaries is hard. Walking away from toxic dynamics, especially in family, is incredibly painful. There will be guilt, there will be fear, there will be backlash. But on the other side of that pain is the possibility of peace, of genuine self-worth, and of building connections with people who see and appreciate the real you. Your value is not measured by what you can give or what you can do for others. Your value just is, and you deserve to be seen, loved, and respected for exactly who you are. If this resonated with you, please give this video a like and consider subscribing for more stories like this. And if you feel comfortable sharing, let me know in the comments below if you've ever experienced something similar. How did you navigate it? What did you learn? Sharing our stories helps us all feel less alone. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you deserve a life that is truly your own. Thank you for listening.